with Prithviraj Chavan, former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, key senior Congress leader, very much right in the middle of this crisis that has hit the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi, the ruling coalition in Maharashtra. We don't know how long this government is going to stay because Eknath Shinde, the rebel Shiv Sena MLA, who is in Guwahati, we've seen the drama over the last couple of days. He has the numbers today to split the Shiv Sena. He has 37 MLAs with him. But Mr. Chavan, welcome to ThePrint. And my first question to you is about the crisis in your government. Do you think your government is about to fall anytime?
Well, there is a split in the largest component of the Vikas Aghadi, that is Shiv Sena. And apparently, television is showing that he has sufficiently large number of MLAs with him. But ultimately, it is not television pictures, but what happens in front of the Honorable Speaker that counts. Whether the split in the party will be sanctified, legally sanctioned, that can only be done by the officiating speaker, the deputy speaker currently, who has to verify the signatures and maybe meet the MLAs individually, whether they've been held against their will or they're voluntarily agreeing to part company with the Shiv Sena. That will have to be ascertained in all practical purposes. You can't take such a serious action on a piece of paper, signatures, whether real, genuine, forged, that will have to be verified. I don't know what the game plan of the rebel MLAs are, whether they will come back to Mumbai. There has been appeal by the official Shiv Sena, by Uddhav Thackeray's side, that they should come back, and Uddhav is willing to make any modifications in the party, including leaving the chief minister's position, including leaving the party position, all that. But let us come. Now, I'm sure that MLAs would not come to Mumbai because there'll be some law and order issues if they come back.
So 1 second, you're saying that the MLAs may not come to Mumbai because Eknath Shinde has now reportedly said that he has left Guwahati and he is on his way back to Mumbai. But you're saying that they may not come back.
No, MLAs may not come back. If you're confirming that he has boarded a plane and is coming back to Mumbai, then he'll come back and negotiate with both BJP and with Shiv Sena. Because I am hearing that BJP has offered him a joint ministry, but they're requesting him to join the party, join the BJP. They think if again, a very loose coalition of people who are uncertain about their future, if those people form a government together, that government may not be stable. So that will be one set of negotiations which Mr. Shinde will have to do with the BJP face to face and settle the issue whether it will be alliance or they'll insist on a merger of the party. Okay. Secondly, he'll have to also discuss the legal issues arising out of this letter, which both sides have written. The official Shiv Sena, Uddhav Thackeray's side has written a letter to disqualify certain people because they did not attend a meeting, while Mr. Shinde is saying that he is the real Shiv Sena because he has a 2/3 majority of MLAs.
Right.
Now, cannot be certain on telephone calls and video footage. The people are allowed to come there. Now, yes, there could be some law and order situation, but I think I'm hearing that they're planning to airlift the MLAs to Mumbai and then airlift them from airport to directly to Raj Bhavan by helicopters. It's going to be a massive operation, but I'm not privy to what their internal discussion between BJP, the Raj Bhavan, and the top leadership in Delhi is happening. But the whole operation is being conducted remotely by BJP without coming in the front.
So the BJP, according to you, is conducting this whole operation. And as it unfolds, you are saying that you are hearing that they will bring the MLAs, that Eknath Shinde's team will bring his MLAs to Mumbai and then helicopter them from Mumbai airport to the Raj Bhavan. Is that correct?
Well, that's one of the plans I'm hearing, because then Raj Bhavan gates will be locked. No outsiders can enter Raj Bhavan. There'll be police protection there, right. And they'll be dropped,
airdropped or parachuted into Raj Bhavan.
Not parachuting is a way of telling. They'll have to come by helicopter directly, or I don't know how they can come by boat or something like that. I don't know how they plan to come there. But there's going to be a law and order. The good point is, seriously, that the MLAs are with Mr. Eknath Shinde, true. You can see the footage.
Okay.
But are the people who voted them to power, are they with them? Are the Shiv Sainiks, are the Shaka Pramukhs, are the leaders of the Shiv Sena at the grassroots levels, are they with those MLAs? There is an issue about it. I understand that Mr. Aditya Thackeray is meeting the Shaka Pramukhs, the sort of the bloc president level equivalent in Congress party. And and they're trying to make sure that you insist on your MLAs who you are elected on a Shiv Sena ticket, pressurize their families, pressurize their friends and number twos that they should not do this and they should come back to the main fold.
But that's
so it's an evolving situation.
That's a secondary question, Mr. Chavan, whether the people are with the Shiv Sena or whether the people are with the Eknath Shinde camp or not. The primary question right now is whether your government itself is going to survive. And as you are saying, it has to be done on the floor of the House. It cannot be done in any other way. But the governor seems to be ill. He has COVID and reports are that he's in hospital. So what happens now?
So I think we'll probably have to. Governor, apparently, what I've heard is that governor apparently is unwilling to hand over charge to the Goa governor or some other governor. He said, no, I will do this operation myself. And he'll have to, he says that he's not ill at all. Doctors have taken him to hospital, but he is not well. And probably he'll come back after a few days. So in the meanwhile, they'll try to accrue more MLAs if they could. But situation is, a split in the party can only be certified by the Honorable Speaker. And majority of the government will have to be certified on the floor of the House. But it's a sequential process.
Yeah.
The Speaker will have to certify the party is officially split. And who is the leader of the individual respective groups. That will have to be defined first. Now, that can only be defined when the MLAs land huge law and order situation also.
So the fact is, Mr. Chavan, that this has happened under your very nose. How is it that you are in the ruling party, in the ruling coalition, and yet this entire operation has been held and nobody knew about it? So clearly, it seems to be like a failure of intelligence of the government.
Well, it's a fact that the home portfolio is with a NCP legislator, Mr. Dilip Walse Patil. I'm sure the intelligence chief in the state briefs the chief minister every day and also brief the home minister every day, whether they had any clue about what is happening, whether they informed the home minister, and then whether home minister informed the chief minister, and whether the intelligence briefing contained that there is something going on. We're all sure. Let me take a broader picture here.
But are you amazed that something like this has happened? I mean, are you surprised?
Of course, yeah. Such a large number of people, if at all they were unhappy, that how was this unhappiness contained for 2.5 years? That's an amazing thing. But let me tell you one thing. This has not happened within the Shiv Sena alone. There is active connivance, active collaboration with the BJP. BJP's game plan was clear. BJP has not been able to control the Mumbai Municipal Corporation ever since they've been trying to get elected. It was always Shiv Sena.
Okay.
Now, their twin objective is that weaken the Shiv Sena, split the Shiv Sena, and get a majority on their own in the BMC, the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai, elections for which are going to be held in the next couple of months. Now, second objective clearly is to weaken the Hindutva forces, because Hindutva votes do not all go to BJP, some of them go to Shiv Sena. So once the Shiv Sena is weakened, splintered, there's infighting, and it ceases to be a major force in the state, then all the Hindutva votes will automatically come to BJP. That is their.
Mr. Chavan, be that as it may, whether or not the BJP is behind this, we don't know for a fact. Although there are reports that Himanta Biswa Sarma was at the hotel in Guwahati before the Eknath Shinde camp, and he himself and his legislators, those loyal to him, arrived in Guwahati. And you've seen some BJP ministers idhar-udhar, both in Surat as well as in Guwahati. But the fact is that let's talk about your ruling coalition. Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, still the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, it is very clear that he has lost the faith of the party. He doesn't have the MLAs today.
Well, I think obviously you can draw the inference that many people were unhappy with the way the government was, the party was run by Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. But that remains largely an internal issue. This is a three-party coalition. If the
What was the problem? In a sense, was it because that he seemed to be aloof, not in touch with the people didn't trust him as much, he didn't have that kind of close connection that his father, Balasaheb, had?
No, people trusted him implicitly. That is why he got elected. He got so many seats. But let us not forget that there was a major COVID epidemic. Mr. Uddhav Thackeray has health issues. He had a major heart issue some time back. Even now, recently, after COVID, he had some back trouble and he had to be laid down literally for about a month or so. So there have been health issues, which he tried to explain when he addressed his state a couple of days back and said why he could not meet people. But that's between the leader and his followers within the Shiv Sena party. We can't advise him how he should conduct his party. But apparently there was a problem, as is being manifest now. But interestingly now what has happened, MLAs may have grouped together and gone away, but has the party, the rank and file party, the grassroots Shiv Sena worker, has he gone with those MLAs who they voted for in the last assembly election, or are they still with the parent organization? Are they still with the leader, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray? That we have to decide on the street only, unfortunately.
But it seems that Mr. Shinde is also saying that he's in touch with about 400 corporators. He feels that he has the will of the people is with him and not with Mr. Thackeray, with Uddhav Thackeray.
Well, that will have to be seen because Mr. Eknath Shinde has been a major force in the Thane district. I wouldn't call him a statewide leader. He has been a minister, but then in the Devendra Fadnavis government as a important minister, leader of the Shiv Sena group. But he again complained at that time that Mr. Devendra Fadnavis has ill-treated him within the previous alliance government of BJP and Shiv Sena. During the Thane Municipal Corporation elections, he virtually, in a public meeting when Mr. Uddhav Thackeray was present, he literally cried off and then handed over his resignation from the Devendra Fadnavis ministry. I mean, of course, a token this thing. The resignation was handed over in front of all the people in Thane. So he had problems with the previous chief minister under whom he served, which was Devendra Fadnavis. So these issues happen when you're running a government like that. But okay, whether the grassroots Shiv Senics, the voters of Shiv Sena support Mr. Shinde and the other MLAs who they've elected or not, you cannot say sitting in studio like this. It will have to be, unfortunately, proven on streets. And I think when the MLAs start coming back, there would be issues, I think. So that's why this plan of directly airlifting them to the governor's house is being mooted out.
But if the legislators are going to be in the governor's house and the governor is in hospital, so this scenario, I mean, how is this going to unfold?
No, this can only happen when the governor comes back and assume duties.
Right.
Which means a few days more.
So now just to come back to the question that that the party politics, whether the party is with Mr. Uddhav Thackeray or whether it is with Eknath Shinde, and Sanjay Raut, the Shiv Sena MP, has said that it could come to the roads, like you are also suggesting. So that means violence, isn't it?
Well, I don't know how issue will be resolved. It never happened before. I mean, since we had splits in the parties, and those splits were recognized by the official sitting in the chair, which is the speaker in this case. But I don't think there have been grassroots fistifights kind of thing to decide who has the authority. We had seen that when the Congress party split, both in 77-78 period, and when NCP split away from Congress in 99, as to who owns the Congress party office building, who's the legal,
right,
the heir to the party and all that. That, of course, will have to again go back to election commission, unfortunately. Whether the symbol will be frozen, but both parties will fight under new symbol. Those issues will be in the future now.
But if 37 MLAs of the Shiv Sena are breaking away and are willing to form a new party and they call themselves the real Shiv Sena, surely they represent their own people, which surely means that a large majority of the Shiv Sena is with the new Mr. Eknath Shinde camp.
Well, I don't think you can directly draw that inference, particularly given Shiv Sena. That will be only be decided in constituency by constituency. The real functionary in Shiv Sena is so-called Shakha Pramukh. It's like a block chief or something like that.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Aditya Thackeray is currently holding a meeting of all the Shakha Pramukhs and actually gathering them together and also requesting them that they should try and telephone their MLAs if they can get to them, or pressurize their families that they shouldn't do this, that they should request them to come back. It's a fight within the family, we'll resolve it. Whatever they want to do, they can be sorted out. I don't know how it will be resolved, but it's a unique situation because a split in the party has never flown on the streets. Sometimes little bit to happen, never flown on the streets, it has now done that. So
But it seems very clear, and would you agree with me, Mr. Chavan, that the Eknath Shinde camp, the MLAs who are now saying that they're loyal to him, they feel that there has been a dilution of the Hindutva vote. I mean, that they were elected on the Hindutva mantle, and that is being diluted.
No, that's absolute, if I can use the strong word, is absolute nonsense. Because you see, when the common minimum program was being drafted, when we decided to come together in November of 2019, who were the people who represented respective parties? I was there on behalf of the Congress party, and Mr. Eknath Shinde represented Shiv Sena. He has signed the document called Common Minimum Program, which brought us together, and we are governing based on that Common Minimum Program. There were contentious issues that time. They got resolved in Delhi. We all went to Delhi also, met at Sharad Pawar's residence, and those issues are resolved. And I don't think Mr. Eknath Shinde can say, no, this is some strange arrangement has suddenly come up and is diluted Hindutva. He has signed on that document, and he has been part of the government for 2.5 years. He never thought of Hindutva for the last 2.5 years. Of course, one thing is clear, that he expected to be the chief minister. The internal arrangement within the Shiv Sena was, like Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray, who was the boss of the party but never took any official position. In 95, when the alliance government was formed, it was Mr. Manohar Joshi on behalf of the Shiv Sena who became the chief minister.
Right.
So expectation was the same thing will happen now, that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray will remain the party chief, the Paksha Pramukh, and mantle will be handed over to number 2 man, which was Eknath Shinde. That did not happen. Primarily because when we all 3 parties sat together, Mr. Pawar came out with the formulation. He said, look, many people in NCP and Congress are senior to anybody else, meaning Eknath Shinde or maybe Aditya Thackeray or anybody else. Right. And it's difficult for them to work under a junior person. Mm-hmm. So if you really want the government to run, it has to be headed by Mr. Uddhav Thackeray himself. And that was decided in that joint meeting. Now, he was slighted. He felt he's still nursing a grudge about it. He discussed with us, did you oppose me? We had nothing to do with it. It was an internal decision at that level. And Mr. Uddhav Thackeray said yes. I think he has been nursing a grudge. So it is an issue that while he has worked very hard for the Shiv Sena, no doubt about it, particularly in the Thane or Mumbai metropolitan region, that he has been deprived of the number 1 position. Then there are bickerings within the party. I don't want to get into that because that is their party. But we are hearing the letter by Mr. Shishad, the MLA and all that. There were some issues about how you run the party.
So let me come to you, to the Congress party itself. I mean, you seem to have been a very weak coalition player. None other than Priyanka Gandhi was in Mumbai. Everybody thought that here she was going to try and bring the flock together. But then she, the reports are now, and now the Congress party has also said that she has gone to the Maldives to be with her daughter. So it doesn't seem to me that the Congress party is taking this whole crisis very seriously.
I think there are 2-3 parts to this. I wouldn't be able to comment on what Mrs. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra did or what her personal plans are. If she never informed anybody that she's coming, I think people must have got to know that she's traveling through and it's a transit halt. I don't want to comment on that at all. Now, is there a problem in the Congress party? Yes, we have to be worried about it because in the council election, there were mass defection from Congress party. We had fielded a Dalit candidate and also another non-Dalit candidate, the open category candidate. We didn't have enough votes. Congress party only had 44 MLAs who were voting in that election. And the minimum number of votes required to get a candidate elected was 26. Now, since we worried about the Dalit candidate not winning, we gave a quota of 29 votes to our leader, Mr. Handore, Chandrakant Handore, a Dalit leader, who was a former minister with us also earlier. Now, when the voting took place, out of 29 seats that were allotted to Mr. Handore, he got only 22. Well, other candidate who was given a quota of 15 got 20 seats, 5 seats more. Now, was it that some Congress people cross-voted within our party? But as our leadership who were monitoring the election, Mr. Balasaheb Thackeray, Mr. Balasaheb Thorat and Mr. Ashok Chavan, they say that the 5 votes that the other candidate got were taken from other small parties and independents, which means that 7 people from the Congress party voted out of the party and particularly voted to support BJP. Now, right. That's a serious concern. I've raised that with the High Command, that we know the people who voted, who did not vote according to the High Command whip. Sonia ji wanted a Dalit leader to be elected from Maharashtra, and she gave a ticket to a Dalit leader. But the party failed to get that Dalit leader elected. The Dalit leader lost in the second round and all that. It's a very serious matter. I raised that issue with the Congress leadership. I think in the way the voting was done, the people who did not vote for the official candidate has been identified.
But no action seems to have been taken, Mr. Chavan.
I requested that action be taken. At least they should be called and something should happen. And somebody the responsibility should be fixed on somebody. But now I think the party is preoccupied with the government is saved.
So that's how seriously you take your own party. It's the biggest.
So I think saving the government is important, but we have nothing to do with it. We cannot play any positive or negative role to save the government. It's entirely an issue with the Shiv Sena. So I think we have to look after our flock, and we're meeting regularly. And I'm sure Mr. Kamalnath was here the other day. Mr. H.K. Patil, who is the General Secretary, in charge of the Maharashtra affairs for the Congress party, was here also. I think he's still here. I think it's up to him and the Congress party High Command now what to do.
It only seems as if the NCP, well, actually Mr. Sharad Pawar himself, who's really standing in the way between Mr. Eknath Shinde and Mr. Uddhav Thackeray. Otherwise, this government seems to it should have gone over a couple of days ago.
Well, it happens that, see, again, the episode of Speaker. The speakership had come to Congress party.
That's right.
We had nominated one member from among the Congress legislature as the speaker. He officiated as speaker. He worked as a speaker for a year or so. But then, about a year and a half back, I think he was told from Delhi, or I don't know what happened, he suddenly resigned. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that other 2 partners, the CM, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, and the leadership of the NCP, was very upset that they were not informed that Congress party was changing its speaker, or the speaker was resigning.
So the direction came from Delhi.
I'm not sure how it came, who decided to do, who told him to resign, or he resigned on his own. But the fact is, as a result of that, because of this whole issue, unpleasantness in the resignation issue, for 1.5 years, the speaker's position is not occupied. Congress party doesn't have a person there. And officiating, the deputy speaker is now officiating and using all the authority of the speaker. And before the deputy speaker, who belongs to NCP now, the matter will go, because the split in the party can only be certified by the honorable speaker.
So you didn't name another speaker. You haven't taken action against those who allegedly cross-voted in the Legislative Council elections. So the Congress party seems to be completely at sea in Maharashtra. You're, a very influential government that you're just running or trying to run.
I think apparently we're all worried now whether the government survives or doesn't survive. If it doesn't survive, then we'll sit in the opposition and play a role of opposition, which the voters in Maharashtra mandated us to do in November of 2019. We are prepared mentally that we lost the election. Congress party unfortunately came number 4 in the state. The lowest performance, we just got 44 MLAs in the House of 288. And so we're prepared. But this opportunity fell into lap. When the Shiv Sena and BJP fought over some issues, I think, of forming government, who will become the chief minister and all that. And we saw an opportunity and grabbed it. It was difficult to convince the High Command, but they finally agreed that it's more important to prevent BJP from forming government in Maharashtra. And therefore, we had a three-party government.
It was
Unfortunately,
difficult to convince the High Command at the time that you should form a ruling coalition.
yeah, that we should join Shiv Sena.
But why?
Well, I think there are issues because Shiv Sena had a particular ideology when Balsab Thackeray was there. And I think it has now changed over a period of time. And their hard anti-Muslim stance is not there. And Mr. Uddhav Thackeray personally has taken an anti-Modi or anti-Prime Minister position over a long years. So a lot of us felt that although we have not worked with Shiv Sena closely before, there was a time when Mr. Bal Thackeray supported the emergency of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. There was a time when we worked together in the Mumbai Municipal Corporation election. But there were sporadic relationships. Largely, we never worked together with Shiv Sena ever before because of their political ideology and all that. But this time we thought that it is important to prevent BJP from occupying Maharashtra again, taking over Maharashtra again. And that's why we came together.
So talk to me a little bit about the feelings that you just said that Mr. Uddhav Thackeray has about Prime Minister Modi. You say that he became anti-Modi.
Well, he in the last 2.5 years that we have seen him, he has criticized Mr. Modi personally, his policies personally. He is definitely not eager to meet him. He doesn't go to receive Mr. Modi at the airport. All those issues are there. Either signals are being sent or directly he's articulated his opposition to the policies and all that. So he is definitely not with Mr. Modi.
But why do you think?
No, I don't know what has gone wrong, whether it's personal equations or policy level. He's not with them at all.
And Eknath Shinde has now, he has told his legislators in Guwahati, this happened a day ago, that there is a Mahashakti that is behind the coalition. That is behind his camp.
We know which Mahashakti he's talking about. Mr. Sharad Pawar in his press conference also said that Mr. Eknath Shinde had said there's a national party behind us. Now then he listed out the national parties in the country that the election commission has recognized. He read out all the 6 names. He said Communist Party, this, Communist Party, that, NCP, Nationalist, Congress Party, Mayawati's party, and the 6th party was BJP.
Right.
So he just cryptically said you can say which national party is backing Mr. Eknath Shinde.
But really, if you look at it, the fact that the NVA, the Vikas Aghadi coalition was literally created or conjured up, like you said, you had mentally prepared to sit in the opposition, but it was Mr. Sharad Pawar who basically brought it all together. Now, in a sense,
I think you could say that, but I think it was all 3 parties agreeing to come together. There was some different view within the Shiv Sena. We had a very strong opposition from Delhi, and because the other states also, and they perceived Shiv Sena as with a different ideology altogether. And I'm sure within the NCP there were different views. So all 3 of us came together. So I think there is no one architect. But if you want to call Mr. Pawar as the architect of the alliance, you're welcome to say that. But I think that all 3 parties together, all 3 parties had a sort of a veto. You could have not agreed and it wouldn't have happened. It only happened because all 3 parties came together and we wrote in black and white a common minimum program which is signed on.
But you tried to create a real opposition to the BJP, Mr. Chavan. But now it seems like it was like a house of cards that has now collapsed.
Well, if you say 2.5 years, it's house of cards. I mean, we have seen governments falling in 13 days, 10 days, Mr. Bajpayee's government. It's all right. It's politics. Numbers are important.
So since numbers are important, it's basically all over bar the shouting. The MVA will not exist very soon.
Well, we know whether it exists or doesn't exist after a few days. I don't think it's going to happen in a few hours. It's going to happen in some number of days. With Mr. Eknath Shinde actually come to Mumbai, and as you say, he's taken a flight from Guwahati to come somewhere. Maybe he's coming to Mumbai, and he's negotiate. I don't know who he's going to negotiate with, or is he going to take legal counsel of legal luminaries? What happens before the Honorable Speaker, we don't know. But yes, there could be change of heart also. There's a lot of pressure from the constituency level building up on the MLAs who are defective. That, please don't do this. So we'll have to wait for what happens.
So last question to you, Mr. Chavan. Why Guwahati? Why do you think that was chosen by Mr. Eknath Shinde to go there and to protect, to keep his flock together.
Search me. I don't know why Guwahati. They had Lucknow, and they had, I think, Bhopal. I don't know where else you could have gone to. Delhi also. There is central government there. Why Guwahati? I don't know. He's a new darling of Mr. Modi, I think, because he's converted, like you say, from Congress to BJP. So he's, I think, more loyal to the king. I don't know why. Because there's a issue in Guwahati. There are floods there. Chief Minister should be preoccupied with the flood management of that. But he is looking after the hotel arrangements for the guests which are coming from Bombay.
Well, be that as it may, Assam is a beautiful part of the country. So perhaps the Eknath Shinde camp is now enjoying the hospitality.
Provided they are allowed to go out of the hotel.
Well, we shall see, I suppose, over the next day or so how this unfolds. Mr. Prithviraj Chavan, thank you so much for your time for speaking to The Print.
You're welcome. Thank you.